welcome to the Timeless Moments podcast. My name is Spokenpriestess, and I'm going to be your host on this wonderful series. You're going to be hanging out with amazing artists and different people getting into the nitty-gritties of arts and all things related to Standard Bank sponsorships. Today, I'm hanging out with Dr. Same from Standard Bank, as well as the incredible Buhlebezwe Siwani. We are at the Standard Bank Art Gallery, and we're going to dig into what Ugogo Buhle has got going on here. I'm going to dig right in. Your exhibition is called Iyeza. From my understanding, I'm Bedi. So from my understanding, Iyeza is a Xhosa word. But I think people have a different relationship or understanding of the word based on who they are or where they are in their lives. Mm-hmm. For the purpose of your exhibition, what does Iyeza mean?
I think it's important to start with the word itself. The word Iyeza in isiZulu means to come. And because isiXhosa is also a Nguni language, one needs to explicate and explain the difference between the Zulu, Iyeza, even in the way it's spoken, and isiXhosa, Iyeza. Mm-hmm. You see, it's even the nuance in how it's spoken.
Right.
So basically, the exhibition is titled Iyeza because it's around traditional methods of healing. So when we speak about Iyeza, we don't speak about Disprin, Panado. You don't go, Cela undlethele Iyeza. You ask for Amayeza would be Imbiza, Aloe, Mbepo, Buhu, those are the traditional methods of healing that Iyeza, the exhibition, speaks about. It speaks about water as medicine, speaks about soil as medicine, speaks about eucalyptus, etc., like traditional, the elements themselves and the things that come out of the ground, not something that's grown in a lab.
Understood.
Yes.
Understood. I love that. I also really appreciate the pronunciation because as a very colorful nation, there's different ways of saying things, and we often don't actually pay attention to the fact that the nuances are also in the way the language is spoken. So that just really means something beautiful to learn. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about your decision to put traditional medicine as the center of your art. I say this because, traditional medicine or the conversation around traditional practices is always 50-50. It's polarizing because, sometimes it's misunderstood and sometimes people are really guarding off the conversation. Mm-hmm. As an artist, you went right in there. Of course, Uyigogo yourself as well.
Right.
What is the significance of you saying, I'm going to put my art as a form of education about these practices?
I think it's important to, if art doesn't educate, then what are you doing? Mm-hmm. I think it's always important to put, but it's also, it would be remiss of me to say that people don't know anything. We know,
yeah,
right? And people know. And so the best thing for me to do is always ask questions and kind of start excavating. I'm always interested in excavating our own narratives, which are often well guarded, but they're almost like open secrets. So why not take the open secret to the streets?
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like it's my duty, because I know these things, to put them out there and say, these things are not secrets. And it's time that we should be also open. There's nothing, it's controversial because it was suppressed, right? It was illegal to practice our traditional beliefs in South Africa until, I think, democracy, because it was illegal from 1958. So, all of these things kind of make it more complex to speak about things which were previously we were not allowed to speak about. So I think it's important, it's imperative to put the open secret out there and ask questions of people and say, why does this make you uncomfortable? And that's what Iyeza tries to do.
I love that. Art's purpose is to interrogate and educate, and I love that. Speaking about ownership and taking ownership of our narratives and our stories and conversations that already exist, as a brand, Standard Bank, I, from my perception, has been so brave in really going out there and getting the hands dug in terms of relating with artists that people love, really putting their pulse on the streets. And this for me is monumental, because generally or usually brands wouldn't get involved in something that is, as Buhle says, controversial, but an open secret, a very hush-hush, for me, firstly, props to Standard Bank for that. And how did the decision come about to say, firstly, we're going to have this in the house, and secondly, giving Buhlebezwe this SBYA, she's a Standard Bank Young Artist for visual artists, and just take us through that. Like, how did you make the decision, and then how did you decide we're going to house the exhibition as well?
So, I mean, Standard Bank has been supporting the arts for more than 4 decades now. And obviously the Standard Bank Young Artist Award is linked to the National Arts Festival. So that is where the winner is chosen, and they subsequently then have their showcasing there of the piece or practice of their practice that they are involved in. There's a panel that sits at the National Arts Festival that sits and decides who is going to be the winner, and that's kind of based on a criteria, but to put it broadly, it's mostly young people, young creators that are at the cusp of their careers, and they're not necessarily kind of unknown or up and coming. It's artists that are already doing stuff in the industry, and it's just a way of acknowledging them and saying that we are recognizing that you are putting in the effort, you're putting in the work, and we just want to congratulate you, but also just give you that extra push and say, well done, and that we really recognize what you're doing. And Buhlebezwe, of course, was the 2021 winner. And what's interesting about the space that I work in, which is the Standard Bank Gallery, is that, of course, every winner is different.
Yes.
And it then means that you then have to think about how their work is going to translate in the space. And one thing that I would like to also commend Standard Bank with is, in general, in this art space, there's no sense of censoring the artist. So the artist really has carte blanche on what they want to do in the space. And that's really commendable.
That's major key.
To support artistic expression in that way. Yeah.
Getting the exhibition into the gallery. I don't know if you've come in and seen it, of which you should. First of all, don't watch this without seeing the exhibition, because you won't understand what we're going to talk about. But anyways, it looks like it's very different from, I've been here on a lot of the exhibitions that Standard Bank has had. There's grass here. There's water on the floor, Sana. There's stars, like there's a lot going on. So I want to understand the work or the effort, like how do you actually go about putting such an interesting exhibition into the space?
Well, that's the interesting thing about curating or being a curator. It literally means somebody who looks after artworks, who cares for artworks.
Yeah.
And you have to think about how would you care about, for a piece of artwork, regardless of what it is, once it enters the space. And one of the things really also that people don't, or is at least a myth around curating, is that it's very glamorized. It looks nice once the show is up and it's all nice cameras and everything. But the practicalities of putting together the actual work.
I'm like, how many trucks were involved in you get?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
You have to pull out tricks out of a hat kind of thing to make it work. And to do it in the best way that stays true to, the artwork, stays true to, the requests of the artist and how they want their work to be represented. And most of all, looks after the space, and that it then lives in the space through the duration of the exhibition for people to experience in the most authentic way.
This is so exciting. Coco, your exhibition is incredible.
Thank you.
I want to reference some of the works. I was very interested in the visual installation, Yehla Umoya. And again, the name as well is, the Zulu and this Xhosa, and there's just different relationships that we have with these phrases. The characters in the visual, are they connecting to the earth? Are they embodying spirits? Like, please take us through what's happening in the installation, because there's earth, there's water, there's air, there's rock.
Right.
And which is everything that you say is encompassed in the exhibition.
Right.
What's the story in that?
What's the story?
What's the, because art is subjective, right? I see it, I'm like, oh, this is, okay, it's a spirit, it's a crab. And you had a different, perception of it. So maybe you can put us through your mind when you were doing the visual.
You've actually nailed it.
Okay.
So you've hit it on the nail. Yehla moya, literally, I think the easiest way to explain it is, Yehla moya comes from a song. Yes, so it's from a...
That's what I thought of when I read it as well. Okay.
Yehla moya comes from an old song that is sung in churches which have prophetic, so where there's prophetic energies. And Yehla moya means, I think the best way to put it, because it's more nuanced than that. And so English, is Xhosa stolikwa. So the best way to explain it would be spirit descend or spirit enter, would be the best way to kind of explain it. And when I started thinking about making the video, I started thinking about these spaces which we all speak to when we pray and when we speak to spirit. So we speak of the caves, we speak of the mountains, we speak about the bushes, we speak to spirits in the water, we speak to forest spirits. And so I kind of wanted to, but these are all elements as well. So I kind of wanted to, but all these elements fetch water and they take life from water. So one can't be without the other. So they're all interdependent. And I was just thinking to myself, how do I get people to become, how do I get you as a person to relate to this? So I put bodies and I personified these spirits, right? And because when you enter a cave, you don't necessarily see a person, you see yourself. So if like the cave spirit touches something, you can also kind of feel it. If you don't put a body there, then the way that you relate to it is going to be completely different, right? So I needed to have these spirits embodied or personified. So the rock spirit became a person, the bush spirit became a person, and to all go fetch this big water spirit or get this like gift from the water, because without the water nothing grows on the earth. Yeah, and also from the caves, you can also find water. This is why there's waterfalls in what are those things in Mexico called, where there's water inside caves?
The hot baths.
No, not the hot baths.
At least Mexico, in South
Yeah, but all these are indigenous, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to speak to things that speak to indigenous people.
The springs inside the cave.
Yes. The name escapes me right now, but it's just like you'll find the bluest water and people just dive into these holes and there's just water inside, right? And so I wanted to kind of speak back to all these indigenous places and practices, but personify them.
I love the way you also reference Mexico. I mean, I laughed about it, but for me, it's showing us the interconnectivity, like interconnectedness of spirituality,
right,
people,
right,
in general. It's bringing me to, is it Inkwenkwezi, the exhibition with the grass?
Yes.
And that's also showing the interconnectedness of, churches. There's certain churches that pray in grass areas.
Right.
And then also, but the interesting thing is you have to take off your shoes when you get into that exhibition. And for me, that's a practice I recognize from traditional healers.
Right.
You can't get into somebody's Ndumba or Iskotla without taking off your shoes. Take us through that thinking, walking into that space. Is it related to that specifically, but also grounding? There's something called grounding that a lot of other, wellness practitioners use, where you must touch grass, you must touch the soil.
Yes.
Take us through the interconnectedness of Isintu or traditional medicine, but also everybody else's way of relating back and centering themselves, particularly with regards to your exhibition, that one.
So in Kwenkwezi, I was trying to figure out, how do I create a space where one can meditate, and how do we meditate, and how do you calm your energies? And the vibration is felt from when you can't feel the vibration unless you take your shoes off. How do you ground yourself? How do you bring yourself to start meditating and start walking? That's why there's this grass and they're in islands, so you can start kind of like walking in circles, etc., walking around them or going into them, and it becomes something that kind of becomes almost like a when they, there's certain churches where bayazungeza, so they start walking around in circles to kind of like let the spirit also enter in a way. So they kind of becomes like this meditative dance between yourself and the vibrations on the ground. Because when you bury bodies and you bury things and things grow, it's here on the ground. But your spirit, when you speak to your ancestors, it's all looking up, right? So your body can you start the meditation from your feet, and you work your way up. And I think it is important to kind of, it becomes, you're not going to feel anything, and you're going to be less aware of yourself, unless if you have your shoes on, right? But you become more aware and more intentional about what you're doing, what you're stepping on, and you allow yourself to feel more when, so it kind of works in like a multi-sensory way. Yeah. And you can also it's a calming thing. It's a meditative thing. And it becomes like a prayer for one. Yeah, where you can go inside your own head, your own space. I think you kind of retreat into yourself, so you forget everything that is happening outside. And then when you exit, then you put your shoes back on and we're back real life. Hi, So it becomes like I think an escape room, but not the fun kind. Yeah. But the type that is meant to be a space of peace for yourself, and you can just get a moment to yourself. So it's another method of healing. It's another form of Iyeza. Yeah, and but then also I have to think about, how does this translate into art, right? Because at the end of the day, this is an exhibition. So the artist then has to say, okay, how do I make sure that this is still art? And I try and take all of these things, which are things of the earth, things that you can feel, but they're also, I think artists also have a social responsibility. And this is my form of being like, when you walk in here, this is how I want you to feel. Yeah. So that's Inkwenkwezi.
That's incredible.
But beyond that, I think with you saying that you're using art and this visual language, when you spoke about how taking off your shoes, you are being intentional about people wanting them to center themselves. And that's deliberately kind of using the soil as an art tool to say, this is how I want people to experience the space.
Exactly.
The same way you've done with the water as well, with the projection way. It's water projecting on water. So you're using the water almost as if, a painter would use paint as their tool. You're using these, the soil, the water, as these tools, these artistic tools again, which is quite nice, I think. It adds a rich layer to the exhibition.
Dude, this is fascinating stuff. You need to come check this out. It's incredible. I mean, I was going to ask you, Dr. Same, in terms of preserving the integrity of the art pieces. The grass was wet when I was, it was moist. It was really giving what Ubuhle is talking about. As somebody who looks after the art pieces, what kind of maintenance goes into the work, right? For it to remain tacked as if it was new. But two, how much involvement do you have in, because Buhle said she thinks it, but now it has to be an art piece.
Yeah.
So how much collaboration or how much involvement do you have in collaborating with the artists to make sure that, look, your thought is your thought, but as an art piece, this is how it works. I don't know how it works in terms of or how you get involved in helping them put the exhibition together.
when we install the work, obviously it's the process of working through solutions and things that work and don't work. And as I said, primarily as a curator, my job is to care for the artwork. And what is beautiful, I think, about installation work specifically is that it tends to live in the space, literally. And that's what this work is doing, It's living in the space. So the grass every day is growing.
That's beautiful.
Which is quite interesting and nice. The water, we have a little pump for it. So sometimes it's still and sometimes it's kind of vibrating very subtly. Those are all things that, we had to pay attention to in making sure that the exhibition kind of runs in the way in which Buhle had intended it to.
This is incredible. Let's, just before we wrap up, and I let you guys go, let's talk about traditional medicine itself. It's 2023. We're seeing a very loud conversation about traditional medicine, traditional practice, and generally, or back in the days, traditional healers were people that we were deemed as elders or older people, but now we're seeing more young people as traditional medicine, as traditional healers. And part of that could also be social media is now exposing us to things that we otherwise were not exposed to. How do you feel about the progress of social media, either demystifying, traditional healing or contributing towards misconception? I just want to, see where you're at in terms of, you said the secret is out there. We're having these conversations. However, how progressive is it, and then particularly connecting it to when we start to use art to also continue with the conversation. There's a lot happening there. Just tell us about social media, traditional healers, the entire conversation that's happening right now with regards to that.
I'm just one traditional healer. There are many.
Yeah.
My thoughts about social media and digital media, we cannot stay in the past. Yeah, we live in the present. And the present, this is digital media. We're on a podcast. You can't expect us to stay in the past as well, We are a generation that uses social media. We are a generation that uses digital media. Why not use those tools to demystify? Why not use those tools to consult? Why not use those tools to do the work that definitely needs to be done? Yeah, so for me, I think it's great. I love what other people are doing with it. I think, like all things, there's a wonderful side to it.
Right.
But then on the other side, there's a dark side to it. And unfortunately with this practice is, like you said, it's so polarizing that it can go either way. I mean, Instagram and the way that it's used is also super, there are trolls. But there's also Sangoma trolls. And I like to say that some people are too quick with the Twitter fingers and they don't think before they say things, especially because umuti can hurt. And so you really need to be really educational and very specific about how you put these things out there, because if you're not, you're going to hurt a lot of people and you're going to put a lot of people can get sick. People can get sick, people can die, people will end up in hospital if you give the wrong information. And so I think that as progressive as it is, I think people should also just say, remember to consult properly. Yeah. It's like going to a doctor. There's doctors that consult online.
Don't give people the medicine and not help them through it.
Don't just be like it's not over the counter things, Yeah, it's not a spaza shop. Yeah, this is real life and you're messing with people's real lives. So I think it's important that you put correct information out there for people.
That's beautiful. Dr. Same, it's the first time that Buhle is exhibiting in her home country. Girl, period. How does that even work? Congratulations. And also it's astounding. It's like, this is home ground, this is where the spirit lives, this is where this education comes from. I found it very intriguing that this was your first time exhibiting here. Just give us a quick background of where else you've shown and what it feels like to actually bring it back to the source.
So it is my very first time exhibiting in Johannesburg, which is where I was born. I have exhibited once in Cape Town before, so I've had one solo exhibition ever at home in the, I think, 12 years that I've been practicing as an artist.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to be back home for the very first time on my own stomping grounds. So to have my people, my family, be able to see my work and experience it is amazing. I mean, the show is also moving to 4 other locations in South Africa. So it's touring and it will end, I think, in Cape Town at Izigo, which is the South African National Gallery, SANG. So I'm also looking forward to that, and I'll be back for that one as well, which is in November, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've exhibited in Asia, so Hong Kong, Japan, I think India, if I'm not mistaken. Most of Europe. So it's London as well, Australia, New Zealand, where else?
Passport gang.
Yes. So Burkina Faso, lots of West Africa, a lot. I'm also going for the Harare. I'm going for the first time to Luanda, so I'm going to Angola to also exhibit there. There's lots of, Cote d'Ivoire. So the list goes on. I mean, it's been Paris, I won a prize. Italy, I won a prize. But this is the first award at home that I've ever received, and also first show at home. So I'm super grateful for this moment.
This is beautiful. I want to just quickly check our time because I do have another question. But firstly, big up Dr. Same. Your work is incredible. And I'm really happy that we're having this conversation because, again, our relationship with the subject of traditional medicine, traditional healing is different because of our references and who we are and where we come from. And it's so beautiful to see how much intention and how much thought goes into how you want to educate and express about this. Before we close, I'm hearing a song, Unonkala, that keeps playing throughout the exhibition. And can you just take us through the significance of that song? Because I do know it, but obviously I'm not Xhosa. And when you were talking about your visual installation, the lady in the cave also was giving Unonkala vibes. So can you just, is there a connection? Like, what's the significance of Unonkala, the song, in the exhibition and possibly even in your journey as a traditional healer?
All right, so Nonkala is an old Xhosa song, like super old, and it's about a crab that lives in the water, but it's a sacred crab because the crab is also a totem for some people, so some people don't eat it, right? So, I mean, where I'm from, where my parents are from in the Eastern Cape, there's a lot of crabs, and whenever there's umsebenzi umgidi, some ritual ceremony, the song is always sung for our gogo, because when you see a crab, it also mentions gogo, right? So it makes mention of ugogo. So the crab is an ancestor. And so because we were speaking about spirits and we're going to fetch the water spirit, it becomes like this thing that can't be touched or something that you find in the water because we're fetching ugogo mkhulu essentially in the water. Yeah, so that's how it kind of relates to that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
We're learning so much, and there's so much more to learn on this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Same, give the people the information. How long is the exhibition running? What else can we look forward to from Standard Bank sponsorships in the coming year?
Yeah, very exciting lineup. This exhibition runs until the 8th of April. We have a full program of SBYAs. We will have Blessing Gubeni, who was the Standard Bank Young Artist Award winner for visual art for 2020. Due to COVID, he never had his chance to have his exhibition. We're really doing something special for him. And then we're going to have Lady Squally, who is the current Standard Bank visual artist winner for 2022. So a very exciting year ahead of us.
Beautiful things to look forward to. Buhlebezwe, thank you so much, Gogo. Your work is incredible. I hope that it continues to touch many, many more lives and nations. And thank you so much for putting us into, your worlds and helping us understand the arts. Again, we see it looks interesting, but it's really so beautiful to get, the nuances and the fiber in the work. May your light continue shining and also just changing lives. Dr. Same, your work as well. May you continue to keep supporting and helping us put the grass into the art gallery, making it all happen by any means necessary. It's been a beautiful conversation. My name is Spokenpriestess. This is the Timeless Moments podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes. You never know what you might learn.